Hi, my name is Elisa Giaccardi, and with this video, I would like to introduce you to the Master Program Design for Interaction. Let me start with a very quick video that captures the essence of the program.
Consider a coffee cup, a simple product that holds coffee. But there's more to it. In order to get a better understanding of this product, we need to see the user. Likewise, we need to know about the context to understand what the product means to the user, as different environments and social contexts influence how the user experiences the product and how it should function. So what does the coffee cup mean to the user? Something that helps to start the day, to initiate a conversation, or perhaps to arrange a get-together. Therefore, even though it might look like a simple cup, it impacts people's lives in meaningful ways, and it is this impact that should have the focus in the design process. This unique angle of looking at the design context is supported and encouraged by research methods, considering the user's characteristics like their needs and wishes, but also their concerns and the way they interact with their environment, including the people and products that are of relevance. All these insights result in a holistic understanding of the user in its context and stimulate the designer to create new meaningful interactions. Any technologic means in the form of a product, service, or both is there to facilitate these interactions. So when you design something that helps to start the day, to initiate a conversation, or to arrange a get-together, you could create a new coffee cup, but you can also make a different product, or perhaps a service, an environment, or any other kind of intervention. It is up to you to explore what kind of design is most meaningful to the users in the context of their activities. That is design for interaction.
This very short 2-minute video really captures beautifully the essence and the values that are at the heart of design for interaction. Now let me try to unpack them a bit more. I'll go to my slides. What you see here now are 3 examples that illustrate the way in which design for interaction is really all about real people and real impact. What you're seeing in this slide is a conventional wheelchair for children. One of our students conducted a study on how children experience the wheelchair, what kind of emotions they have when using the wheelchair. And she discovered that the main reason why they dislike this wheelchair is because the handles makes them feel dependable. And so what she did was to design a completely different kind of wheelchair. A wheelchair where the handles slide down when they are not necessary. A wheelchair that felt to the children much more independent and active. In a similar way, what you see in this image is a home trainer for blind children that need to exercise. A student that conducted his graduation on supporting physical activity in blind children realized that the children don't like this type of home trainer because they find it boring. They don't see where they're going. There's no fun in just cycling. So what she did was to design a different kind of device, so to speak, for the blind children to physically exercise. And this is a cage called Link, where they can enter and safely exercise outdoors in open field with no risk of being harmed. And here comes the third example. They're all examples that relate to children. Not because we only do designs for children, but because then you can compare and understand the point that I'm trying to make. In this case, the project had to do with children that are under treatment for cancer and therefore in isolation. They are not allowed to play with other children in order not to risk getting infected with diseases for which they don't have, their immune system is not ready to fight. So what Job, one of our students, did was to look at that wall that often isolates the children in isolation in their rooms from the children in the hallway playing, and turn it around into the very surface through which children can connect to each other and play. So if you think back to the three examples, what we have seen has been a redesign, a reconceptualization of the meaning of the product. How can we learn about our users, understand their context, and the kind of experience that they need, that they wish, they desire, so that we can facilitate it. We can facilitate that kind of experience and have that type of impact. That is what DFI at the very core is about. It's about designing for human experiences, designing for real impact. It's about human-centered design. So if you think back at how often you have been taught, perhaps, to think about interaction between a product and a user, you most likely have been used to start with the product properties and features, form and function, perhaps brand, and then think of how you could match them to a user in terms of what the properties, in this case of the user, are, needs, and perhaps background in terms of cultural background or professional background, and very much also body and skills, and try to find an interaction that fit. Now, what we have seen in the previous three examples is that this kind of process has very much informed an attempt to satisfy a particular type of experience that was needed for the children to feel more comfortable riding a wheelchair, physically exercising, or just simply connecting and playing with other children. But of course, it's not always only just about designing an interaction to make people feel in a certain way, to facilitate a certain type of experience. Sometimes what we want to do is to facilitate an interaction between a product and a user, or a group of products and a group of users. Scale has very much changed in these days. Often what we want to do is to facilitate an interaction that has an impact also on how people behave. For example, with respect to how they behave with respect to the environment, how they behave with tolerance towards each other. And so it can also have to do with impact on how people think, what are their attitudes, their values when it comes to, as I said, for example, tolerance towards each other. Now, think of what has been happening over the last years when it comes to the use of technology, and in particular information technology, Internet of Things, and artificial intelligence. There is much that has been written about the biases that are entrenched in this very technology and the negative impact that this kind of technology might have if not designed with a human-centered orientation, with an understanding of the user and their context, multiple contexts of use, and with an understanding of the impact that it can have, not just on how we experience things in everyday life, but how we behave and in the way in which we think. Just imagine all the role that machine learning has played and can play in fake news and boosting certain type of aggressive behavior on social media, etc., etc. So when we start looking really at the big challenges that are out there and think of what design for interaction really is about, well, it's not just about starting from a product and up, understanding the interaction with the user, determining the kind of behavior or experiences or attitudes that it can foster in a more classic user-centered design way. It kind of flips it around, as you can see, because it begins with, as a designer, not only being aware of the problems, but taking a stand and studying, understanding, coming up with ideas and concepts and solutions for achieving that particular type of impact. So in that case, when we flip it around and we start not from the product that needs to match a user or a context, but from an impact that we want to achieve, the product that we might make to achieve that impact is introduced in the very short video at the beginning, can take many forms. It can be a product, but it can also be a service, or it could be a public intervention, an intervention in public space. And so these days, the type of projects and graduations that we often see really take this stance. From this awareness, students ask themselves, how can I achieve that particular impact? In this case, for example, in the project of Felipe, how can I design conversational agents like Google Home or Alexa that are conducive to human well-being, that are respectful of people's sense of autonomy, that are not instigating negative behaviors, for example. Or we look at another project, like in this case, Connected Resources by Masago, who won a Next Generation Internet Award by the European Commission as an example of better digital life. And in this case, what we see is a very different way of thinking, conceptualizing, and using machine learning as a way not to norm behavior in a very paternalistic way, but to support improvisation in everyday life, so that older people, in this case, could age resourcefully at home, by using objects of everyday use in very creative ways and using this family of sensors and actuators to hack these objects and make them work in ways that can help them complement their aging skills, whether physical or mental. Artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, projects in a broader space of transitions, for example, with respect to moving to a greener protein consumption, where we consume meat more sustainable. And in this case, in this project, Tomorrow's Menu by Anna Peters, what you see as the product is not, in the first case, we saw a set of guidelines and principles for designers to facilitate meaningful voice interactions. In the second case, we saw a family of sensor and actuators, and here what we see is a product service system that entails also, for example, for users, the possibility to subscribe to one of the particular farms that fall into a category of sustainable consumption, so that users can choose what type of farm suits better their type of values, and through the money that goes into the subscription as a prepayment on the meat, support the sustainability measures of that particular category of farming. Many of the companies that we're working with today are very much on the same page with this idea that it's a move towards designing for not just human experiences, but for a broader spectrum of impact. And in fact, they come to us with very different questions than in the past. BMA doesn't come to us anymore asking, can you help me with this very particular problem? I need to design this particular chair in a more ergonomic way. They come with much more open-ended questions. Like, for example, how can I design products that foster people's well-being at home or in the office? So, before coming to you, I just want to wrap this part of the presentation by reinforcing this idea that it's a broader space that you will navigate in design for interactions that ranges from designing for particular meanings still that are attached and possibly attributed to products, to meaningful interactions, to broader interventions to achieve a particular impact in the world. And talking about the world, the great thing is that there are so many of you coming from so many different countries, only this year from 30 different countries. So you will have an opportunity to not just have an impact and learn how to have an impact, but you'll be able to do that in a context where you will collaborate with students of all sorts of cultural backgrounds, and in some cases also different design educations that bring in a diversity and a richness that's really truly to capitalize and mobilize in your studies. The program, it's 4 semesters, and the first 2 semesters are filled with mandatory courses, so that in the 3rd semester, and the 4th semester as well, which is a graduation project, in the lecture space in between, and then following that the graduation project, you can focus on acquiring the skills that you really would like to deepen or broaden, co-creating your own curriculum. And for the fall semester, like it would be in this case, students in the first year, as you can see, have a few courses that are shared with the other programs, like, for example, the Idea Academy and Design Theory and Methodology. And then large courses, in particular exploring interactions and context and conceptualization, which is also shared with the Strategic Product Design, a master program. Exploring interactions is a course that's very open-ended, it's very challenging, it's on an individual basis. We have a mix of courses that focus on teamwork and courses instead that are instead on an individual basis. Exploring interactions is on an individual basis, so it's the first big, large course, and you're on your own, so it's a bit challenging. The students will tell you more about it. But it's also where you begin to learn what kind of designer you are, you want to become, and how easy or difficult is it for you to navigate an open space where you have to define your own design brief, and then identify, what interactions are relevant and what is it that you would like to do. Students, I believe, will give you some of the examples of projects in this space that they've been personally working on. Context and conceptualization is another big course in the fall semester, where you learn a whole set of design methods and tools to design your own research, to collect and generate insights about use contexts and what users need or want. So to really gather all that information that it's really necessary for you to design from a human-centered perspective. The spring semester instead, so depending on when you start, right? If you start in the fall, if you start in the spring, this would be your first semester. In a similar fashion to the fall semester has a few courses that are shared, for example, the Idea Academy, and a set of other courses are mandatory. The big courses here, which I just want to briefly mention, are project usability and user experience assessment, which is abbreviated as UXAD, and interactive technology design, abbreviated ITD. UXAD is a course where you learn to redesign the interaction with the product in a way that is, I don't want to say optimal, but that is more conducive, for example, to the particular type of experience that the company, you work with companies, would like to achieve with that particular product. So it's very much based on teamwork. Interestingly, fall semester is more individual work, spring semester is more teamwork, but we always do a little bit of a mix of both in all the courses to an extent or another. In this course, you work in teams with companies to understand how to redesign these interactions. Interactive technology design is a completely different course. If UXAD is very structured, step by step, ITD is very iterative, is very much based on this idea of thinking through making. What you will do here is again working in teams with Arduino boards and sensors and actuators to create interactions that are supported by computational technology. And you will be able to explore different types of scenarios and different types of technologies, and it's actually a very, very fun course that ends up with a collective exhibition in July. Now, if for a moment I want to try to draw a relation to the other master programs within the faculty, of industrial design engineering. Often we say that DFI focuses primarily on people, whereas integrated product design focuses more on technology, and strategic product design focuses more on companies and organizations in general. That is, of course, true, though the boundaries are very much blurring. What I would like to say is that yes, you can keep this in mind as a distinction, but consider also that there are many, many overlaps, and what it really means to be focused on people is that the type of methods we use to understand problems, to conceptualize and come up with solutions are different, are more human-centered, often more qualitative, but that does not exclude the quantitative, and that does not exclude working with technology or working with organizations. It's just the methods are different, the kind of questions and often the aims are different. And the aims are very much about this human impact, having a positive impact on people's everyday life, having a positive impact on society, having a positive impact on the environment, etc., etc. Another important thing for you to keep in mind is that our research program is very much research-based. And what it means is that we have many excellent design researchers and scholars in our faculty that teach courses, both mandatory and electives, in DFI. So you will have an opportunity to meet them and talk to them and work with them. I don't want to say on a regular basis, but at least in the context of the courses that are offered. And of course, you'll have an opportunity to reach out to them for graduation projects and for any kinds of questions that you might have. And finally, I'd like to give you a bit of an overview about the kind of jobs that you might land after DFI. And this is the outcome of a questionnaire that was conducted in 2015 with 605 respondents. And here's the list of the top 5 first jobs that you might land. The first one is UX designer, the second one is service designer, graphic designer, design consultant, and product designer. Now, of course, these are not the only jobs that you might land, most likely, but it's also true that the field is changing very rapidly and very dynamically, and so there might be also jobs that have not, in a way, been invented yet, and that you will be able to explore and craft also by engaging with companies which, as I said, are coming to us for our sponsored projects within courses or for graduations with much more open-ended questions. And I have quite a few students that actually managed to craft their own job description and land it through their graduation projects with one of these companies. The companies also are quite a broad spectrum that goes from small companies to large enterprises, increasingly not just consultancies, but also the public sector, like the municipality of Amsterdam or government sectors are looking for the kind of design expertise and human-centeredness that our DFI students bring to the table. So, do take a leap from industrial design into design for interaction and become the designer that you are always meant to be. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you will enjoy now the conversation with all of us in the virtual environment.